I'm going to give you some credit. Do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years?
Counting or not counting gang violence?
By now, we've all seen the footage of the gruesome and tragic execution of Charlie Kirk, the founder and CEO of the largest conservative youth group in America. Turning Point USA was assassinated at the young age of 31 on September 10th, 2025.
Breaking news, political activist and conservative media personality Charlie Kirk shot and killed while speaking at an event in Utah Valley University this afternoon.
We have learned that Charlie Kirk, that was shot, has now died.
Shots have been fired. There's gunshots. Run.
But here we are, 4 months later, and we, as the public, still seem to have more questions than answers. They tell us that it was simply the act of a deranged lone gunman named Tyler Robinson, radicalized by the internet, who climbed onto the roof of the Losey Center at Utah Valley University with his grandfather's hunting rifle and took the shot that would change the course of political history. Which would be a rather convenient and easy explanation, wouldn't it? Others claim that it was a Mossad CIA deep state operation, retribution for Charlie's ever-growing isolationist rhetoric, questioning the United States' unconditional support for Israel.
America is significantly underwriting the Israeli government $4 billion a year. We as American taxpayers deserve answers to this. Is the media totally presenting the truth when it comes to Israel? Just a question, that maybe we shouldn't believe everything the media says. I mean, we pay for this. What are we buying, right? I got smeared as a Jew hater, an anti-Semite, and conspiracy theorist because I said exactly what I just said. And I refuse to back down despite all the smears thrown at me. How does one respond to the claims of ethnic cleansing?
Up until now, we've been treating these as competing theories. Lone wolf versus Israel and the deep state. But what if they aren't competing theories at all? You see, I've spent the last several weeks following the trail of money that goes back decades, and it has led me somewhere that I never expected. Tokyo, Japan, which just so happens to be the last foreign country Charlie would ever visit, just days prior to his assassination.
This kind of gets into that mysterious last trip to Asia that Charlie took. The timing of that was very strange.
That's right. This is a story that traces back 3/4 of a century, spanning multiple continents, tying together an intricate web of power and money. A decades-long CIA operation in the Pacific, a cult church with a dark mission, and another assassination that shook the world. It's a story so unbelievable that it might just hold the key to unlocking the mystery behind who really killed Charlie Kirk. I'm standing in the middle of Higashi Ikebukuro Central Park. It's a quiet park, but looking around, you'll never guess that this park was built on top of an infamous prison. This was Sugamo Prison. Built in 1895, it was taken over by the United States Allied Forces to house suspected war criminals as they awaited trial before the International Military Tribunal for the Far East. And sitting in a cell where that skyscraper now stands was Nobusuke Kishi. They called him the Monster of Manchuria. He ran the slave labor camps in China. He managed the opium trade that generated immense profit for the Japanese regime, allowing Kishi to live a lavish lifestyle with virtually no oversight. But Japan would go on to lose the war, and by 1948, he was a suspected Class A war criminal awaiting execution. But fate had other plans for him, as by the late 1940s and early 50s, the Cold War had started. And the US wanted to shield against the rise of communism in the East. So in a policy now known as reverse course, the United States looked to install an influential and, more importantly, an anti-communist leader who could help build a conservative, pro-American government in post-war Japan. So they made a deal. They released Kishi, and in exchange, he gave the Americans unfettered access to his country. With CIA funding, Kishi would go on to become Japan's prime minister in 1957, and the party he founded, the Liberal Democratic Party, the LDP, would maintain an uninterrupted 38-year run of power from its founding in 1955 until 1993. In fact, the Liberal Democrats have held power in Japan for approximately 65 of the 69 years since its formation in November of 1955. Pretty impressive for a so-called democracy, and as you'll see, by no means an accident.
One weapon the CIA used with surpassing skill was cold cash. The agency excelled at buying the services of foreign politicians. The first place it picked the future leader of a world power was Japan.
Turns out the CIA spent millions of dollars funding the party through, quote, covert financial aid operations. One of these operations is the now legendary M Fund, a secret stockpile of seized World War II assets, diamonds, and industrial loot that the U.S. occupation forces allegedly handed over to the Japanese conservative leaders to finance the fight against communism. To manage this black budget, Kishi turned to another suspected Class A war criminal from Sugamo prison, Yoshio Kodama. Kodama was a Yakuza boss, a dedicated ultra-nationalist, and became the bridge between the CIA's political goals and the Japanese underworld. He used the M Fund to cement what has come to be known as the Iron Triangle, an alliance between the LDP politicians, the government bureaucracy, and big business. And the scheme continued largely undetected by the public until about the mid-1970s. In 1976, a U.S. Senate subcommittee led by Senator Frank Church revealed that Kodama had accepted approximately $7 million from the Lockheed Martin Corporation. His role was to bribe the Prime Minister and other high-ranking officials to secure contracts for American aircraft, including the L-1011 TriStar. And when this news broke, the Japanese people were pissed. The public turned on the LDP with massive protests and demonstrations in the streets of Japan. Prosecutors arrested former Prime Minister Kakue Tanaka. And in a final act of dramatic irony, an ultra-nationalist actor, furious that a quote-unquote patriot like Kodama had sold out to a foreign corporation, flew a light aircraft into Kodama's house in a kamikaze-style attack. So now the LDP and their CIA brethren had a little bit of a problem, because it's not like the Iron Triangle was completely dead, but because of intensified public scrutiny, they needed to find a new mechanism to move large sums of money around, and they found that in a new partner, which is a church.
Victory, of God.
I am standing in Shoto. It is one of the most expensive neighborhoods in Tokyo, and is also the former headquarters of the Family Federation for World Peace and Unification. You likely know them as the Moonies, or the Moon Cult. In 1954, Sung Myung Moon founded the Holy Spirit Association for the Unification of World Christianity in Seoul. Moon claimed that Jesus Christ appeared to him on a Korean mountainside and told him to finish the work left undone 2,000 years ago. To his followers, Moon was the true parent of humanity, the Messiah. The theology was strict, hierarchical, and militantly anti-communist. Moon taught that the Cold War was the final battle between God and Satan. And it was this specific ideology that caught the attention of Nobusuke Kishi and the Japanese establishment. In 1968, Kishi and Moon established the International Federation for Victory Over Communism. Originally, this was only supposed to be a political alliance. But after the Lockheed scandal in the 1970s made the Yakuza option too toxic, this alliance evolved into something else. The CIA and the LDP needed a way to move money around, and that's when the Moon Church became an industrial-scale, multi-billion-dollar operation. The church generated revenue through a practice known as Rikan Shoho, or spiritual sales. Church representatives told the members that their family misfortunes, such as the death of a husband or the illness of a child, were caused by sinful ancestral spirits, and that these could only be appeased by purchasing expensive spiritual items. But what's interesting to note about the Moon Cult is not just the amount of money that was involved, but how this money was used and funneled into a specific geopolitical agenda. For example, the Moon Church funded the Washington Times, a newspaper that became the primary media platform for the pro-Zionist neoconservative movement during the Reagan and Bush administrations. The church also became a key financier for Christian Zionism in Asia. Moon's theology identified Korea as the, quote, third Israel, and the church forged direct ties with the Israeli right, specifically Benjamin Netanyahu and the Likud party. In 2003, the Moon organization launched the Jerusalem Summit, bringing together American evangelicals and Israeli hardliners to cement their political alliance. According to the National Network of Lawyers Against Spiritual Sales, the church transferred over $3.6 billion from Japan to the United States between 1976 and 2010. Now, this is where things get crazy. It was Kishi's grandson, Shinzo Abe, Japan's prime minister from 2012 to 2020, who provided political cover for the church in Japan. And let's just say the chickens came home to roost.
The nation is in mourning and in shock that the former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has died from multiple gunshot wounds, we now know.
On July 8, 2022, Shinzo Abe was delivering a speech in Nara, a city in Japan located roughly 25 miles east of Osaka and directly south of Kyoto. At 11:30 a.m., a 41-year-old man named Tetsuya Yamagami approached Abe from behind and fired 2 shots from a homemade firearm. While the media initially speculated that this was an act of political terrorism, the police interrogation revealed a much more specific motive. According to police reports and Yamagami's own statements, his mother had been a member of the Unification, aka Moon Church, for years. She had donated over 100 million yen, her entire life savings and the proceeds from selling the family home, to the organization. This donation left the family destitute and led his brother to commit suicide. Yamagami targeted Abe because he viewed the former prime minister as the principal enabler of the Unification Church in Japan. And the crazy thing here is, if you remember, Abe is the grandson of Nobusuke Kishi, the war criminal turned CIA-backed prime minister of Japan, who was the one to first form the alliance between the LDP and the church back in 1957. Following the shooting, public scrutiny on the LDP's ties to the church intensified. The Japanese media began reporting widely on the spiritual sales tactics and the massive financial transfers to the United States. In response to the plummeting approval ratings, the Japanese government was forced to act. The Japanese parliament eventually passed the Victims Relief Act, which banned the malicious solicitation of donations. More importantly, the Cultural Affairs Agency launched a formal investigation into the church's finances and moved to strip the church of its tax-exempt status and freeze its assets.
All right, let's recap what we've found out so far. And if you're asking, what the hell does this have to do with Charlie Kirk? I promise this is all going to tie together in a second. So first, we have the CIA installing a puppet regime in Tokyo starting from the 1950s to, quote-unquote, fight communism. Then we have the Moon Cult acting as a massive money laundry, extracting billions of dollars from Japan to fund Christian Zionism in Asia and America. Finally, we have the assassination of former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe in 2022 that blew the lid off this entire operation. So with the Moon Cult effectively dissolved in Japan, the next logical question is, what comes next? Is there another organization that is perhaps going to take its place?
Today, our founder, Jack Roser, and myself have Charlie Kirk with us. And Charlie Kirk is a young man from Turning Point. He's the founder of the organization.
When Charlie Kirk founded Turning Point USA with businessman Bill Montgomery in 2012 as a senior in high school, the mission was very clear. Economic libertarianism, small government, low taxes, typical Tea Party type messaging.
Graduate from high school this coming June, we're handed a diploma. That's also an invoice for hundreds of thousands of dollars that my generation is going to have to pay off through interest, high taxes, and a stagnant economy.
But something happened between the years of 2018 and 2019.
The summer of 2018, it's a very important summer in Charlie Kirk's life. That's the summer he met his future wife, the former Erika Kirk. The following year, the year that began after he met Erika, the list of officers, directors, and key employees listed on TPUSA's Form 990 exploded. So too did the revenue and expenses.
If we examine Turning Point's IRS 990 filings, we see a massive jump in the organization's revenue, almost 3 times, jumping from approximately $10.8 million in 2018 to nearly $29 million in 2019. Charlie Kirk goes from making about $80,000 a year in a relatively still small organization with just 3 officers to over $290,000 a year and a massive expansion in the organization's leadership, with the likes of Tyler Boyer and Stacey Sheridan joining the organization at this time. Shortly thereafter, the organization's economic libertarian message was gradually phased out until it ultimately disappeared in favor of Judeo-Christian nationalism, with a heavy emphasis placed on the importance of Christian support for the state of Israel. Now, at this point, I think we all know what changed in Charlie's life between the years of 2018 and 2019. And we can either say everything that transpired afterwards was just a big old coincidence, or maybe the dots do all connect.
You're sitting in that chair for a reason. That exact chair. That person that's sitting right next to you was meant to sit right next to you. I will never forget the time I was in Israel with my husband, well, that was the second time, but the first time with my mother on a pilgrimage. And I was standing in the ticket line. And I remember looking behind me, and in the snake of the ticket line was a guy who looked very familiar. I had no idea who he was. And I told my mom, this guy looks so familiar. And as a typical mother, she said, go and say hi. No. We were late for our flight, and I'm not going to come off like a crazy person that's just weird. That ended up being Charlie.
After their quote-unquote chance meeting in Israel, Erika Franzwey and Charlie Kirk would officially start dating in 2019. They became engaged in December of 2020, and they got married in 2021. And who is this Erika Franzwey? Well, we don't really know. Is she a pageant queen? Maybe a wannabe reality TV star? Perhaps a philanthropist with a project gone wrong? An expert on EMPs? A cringe MAGA model? Could she have been Charlie's handler? Yeah, I said it. Could Erika Kirk have been an intelligence asset to keep Charlie in line, to make sure that he sticks to the script? And I think given everything that's happened since September 10th, 2025, this is a legitimate, non-conspiracy question to ask. But in terms of facts, in 2021, just months before the collapse of the Unification Church in Japan, TPUSA launched TPUSA Faith, an organization dedicated to, quote, empowering Christians to put their faith into action, led by megachurch pastor Rob McCoy.
We serve you, Almighty God. 우리는 하나님 당신을 섬깁니다. Let God be true and every man a liar. Let God be true. Sorry. Just say, let God be true.
Could McCoy have been tasked to build TPUSA Faith into a, quote, shadow church of sorts? A network of politically active congregations across the entire world that could function very much like the Unification Church did in Japan for many, many decades, in service of the land belonging to God's chosen people?
2006, I visited Israel for the first time, and now it's been over 30 times. I stand with them. I stand with your sovereignty. And yes, I believe that the Jews are God's chosen people. I have come to love the nation.
And would Charlie, the face of this organization, someone who in the final months of his life, if I might remind you, began to very publicly question our support for the state of Israel, be willing to play ball? Just 2 weeks before his death, of all the places to visit in the world, Charlie Kirk found himself right here in Tokyo, Japan. The official itinerary listed meetings with the Sansaito, a minor Japanese nationalist party. But what was he really here to do? Was he being offered some kind of deal, $250 million of funding, as some have reported, to run perhaps the most powerful political machine in the West? One that requires total allegiance and unconditional loyalty to the cause? But of course, all of that is just speculation. The only thing that we know for sure is that less than a week after his visit to Japan, he was dead.
I'm going to give you some credit. Do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years?
Counting or not counting gang violence?
That is it for me this week. I really hope you guys enjoyed this piece. I want to give a big shout out to other independent researchers out there like Ian Carroll, the great Baron Coleman, of course, Candace Owens, and everybody else who's doing their part to pitch in. This would not be possible without everybody's effort to learn from each other, to build on top of each other. And it's honestly moments like this that gives me hope that good can triumph over evil. And if you want to support the work that I do, head on over to my website, 5149jameslee.com, and sign up to become a news crew or a producer. You can also pick yourself up some merch there. But if you aren't able to contribute monetarily, no worries at all. My work will always be free for everybody. Just take a second, if you can, to like this video, share with as many people as possible, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and hit that notification bell so you can be the first to know when my next video drops. And as always, love to thank you for your time, and I will see you in the next one.
I learned during COVID. I learned when they told us that it came from a bat in the Himalayas. I learned when they told us the vaccine was safe and effective. I learned when they told us that ivermectin was horse paste, that you better keep asking questions because it's the only thing that keeps us free. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.